And without further ado, here is Daniel. He will talk about toothbrushes and software architecture. Daniel.
Thank you. Hello and a happy welcome to the Shopware Community Day 2019. As you all know, we've been working on a Shopware 5 successor for quite some time now. Last year, we presented Shopware Playground, a playground for interested merchants and for developers, of course. And of course, it was to see what's going on with Shopware, and obviously, it was a sneak peek of things to come. So let's get straight to it. Today, we will be talking about Shopware 6. So you can imagine we are all really excited to present Shopware 6 to you today. But a little word up front, you know, this time we will have two keynotes at the same time. It's the first time. We have the general one by Sebastian Hamann in the main hall, and we have the developer keynote by myself today. And you might be wondering, am I sitting in the right keynote? Yes, you are. Obviously, everyone likes to talk about tech. That's why we are here, I think. And if you want to see the keynote from Sebastian, it will be recorded anyway, so you can see it afterwards. But you will not miss out anything, and instead you will see all the nice tech things and so on. Okay, I brought a little agenda. First of all, I want to talk about the why part. Oh, sorry for that. So we will talk about why we went this way, what we actually do, and what we think about Shopware 6 and why we did it, basically. Afterwards, we will talk about tech, as promised. Then we'll talk about business models, and I think I will have to explain to you why this is relevant for you as a developer. And then we will have a short side on the roadmap, and I will draw a little conclusion afterwards. Okay, let's talk about why we're here today. It's Shopware 6. And we ask ourselves, how might e-commerce look like in 10 years? What are the requirements we need to address? What are the learnings we have to take from Shopware 5? And I think many of you will know the so-called hype cycle diagram. This is basically showing how every hype technology works in practice. So at the beginning, there will be something like innovation trigger. Google will present the new Google Glass to the world. And then usually everyone will discuss about it, about the opportunities and also about the problems. Especially in Germany, we will talk a lot about privacy concerns and such things. And then usually it becomes silent about this technology, as for example with Google Glass. So you won't hear from it, and you are wondering, does it still exist? Will it ever come to life? And this disillusion is, or as I see it, very important because it tells apart the good from the bad technologies. From this disillusion, we go to a more pragmatic and realistic adaptation of those technologies. And that's basically how every modern or fancy technology will go through the life cycle. And for that reason, you are usually ill-advised to gear your product strategy around single hype technology because you simply don't know what will prevail in 10 years. So for what hype technology should we write Shopware 6? I don't know. And accordingly, I have to disappoint you. Shopware 6 still does not have a brain control, and also we don't have a hyperspace located blockchain or something. So it's straight to Earth somehow. In biology, there's a term of plasticity. And plasticity describes formability in a broader sense. So you use it for describing living beings or also the human brain. So plasticity is adapting to the ever-changing environment, adapting to the local environment and adapting to social environment. It's a property to adapt to the world. And I think the chameleon is a good way to look at it because it can adapt to the location it is currently. It can be green and other fancy colors. So I think that this also is applicable for e-commerce in a broader sense because e-commerce solutions also need to be plastic in this way. They need to adapt to the local environment or to the e-commerce environment. And this is very important just because of all this hype technology things I told you beforehand. So it's never about a single hype technology. It's enabling their usage in the future by a strong base or by a strong foundation. So the question always is, where is the journey going? According to which philosophy do we decide what's important for Shopware and what not? And I believe the ultimate goal is to take place in the customer's life. So many technologies we've talked about in the past promise exactly that, to take place in the customer's life. And they fail precisely because of that. So, for example, virtual reality shopping, it's a nice thing, and everyone can imagine how cool it would be if you have a 3D environment and you could go shopping with that. But no one told me now, does everyone need these cumbersome goggles, or can you use it with your mobile phone? And how does a virtual reality look like? Do you rebuild the real world, or is it something completely new? And no one has concepts for that, or almost no one. And same applies for voice commerce. I think many of us will have Google Assistant or Alexa, and they will have it in their mobile phones, and they will have it at home. But how many people are actually doing their buying with Alexa? Whoever bought a camera using Alexa? So how does that find to the customer in the reality? Larry Page, the CEO of Alphabet, is known for a very creative way to measure attractiveness of products and companies. And it's not about economics, it's a simple question, and this is, will the customer use this once or twice a day, and does it make his life better? And this is often called the Toothbrush Test, because a toothbrush is obviously something most of you will be using once or twice a day, and also it will make your life better, or at least the life of the colleagues sitting nearby you. So I think a toothbrush will check this test. So it's about building habits for the customer. No one thinks about using the toothbrush. You will have a habit, you use it in your shower, and you use it before going to bed or something, so it's a no-brainer for you. And if you could have such a product, that might be almost guaranteed to be successful. But how can that look like in e-commerce? So what's the product here? Let's take me as an example. To the sorrow of my wife, I've been in film photography for quite some time. And so that means that in my spare time, I will go around with my wooden camera and have a dark cloth and hide behind it and take pictures of trees. And probably this is the least digital hobby you can have. But the passion behind of it, that's something you could use in e-commerce. So how do you do that? In e-commerce, it's hard to form habits like the toothbrush thing. And so there is an addition that is often stressed. And it says, if you cannot build a habit around content and community, if you cannot build a habit around your product, build a habit around content and community. And so I can buy film everywhere. You can still get it in drugstores in Germany at DM or Rossmann. You can buy it at Amazon. You can buy it in online shops. But again, it's about catching the customer where he or she is. That's important. So photographers like me, they will be like on Facebook, or they will be on Instagram. Usually they will watch a lot of YouTube videos. There's even a syndrome called for photographers. It's a gear acquisition syndrome. So basically, photographers will mostly never take actual pictures, but always think about buying new gear. So get new lenses and so on. So that's what photographers almost do. And for film photography, you will talk about development times and stuff. So how do you develop a film and so on. So there's a lot of content and community going on, and it's very important to get that in your shop, to reflect that in your business. So why just selling people films if they also need, I don't know, development times? And it might be a good idea to have that right away in your shop, so they always go there if they want to know something. And same applies for, I don't know, instructional videos, community, talking about things, discussing which developer matches which film best, and so on. So it's about creating additional value for customers. And in order to do so, you need to have a very simple insight. It's never about a single technology. It's not about buying things in cars. Buying things in cars might be a good idea in some cases, but it's never about doing that at any price. And same applies for other hype technologies. So it's about taking place where the customer is. It's about understanding what the customer wants, perhaps without the customer even having fully understood what he or she wants. So this could be a POS solution, and it might be social media integration. So if photographers are on Instagram, why don't you happen on Instagram with your business? And same applies for all other kind of social media. So you want to experiment with all this kind of channels. And talking about channels, in my perspective, there are three very important dimensions you need to talk about if you're a merchant and if you want to grow. And these three dimensions are drawn here. And for me, it's mainly new market, new channels, and customer loyalty. If a merchant is successful in Germany, he might consider to go to Switzerland and Poland as well. And the question for him is, what do I need to do to sell my stuff there? Same applies for new channels. If you want to be on Instagram with your products and present your products there, what do you need to do that with your e-commerce solution? And then again, if you already have a customer, how do you make sure that he or she comes back to you? So, yeah, like catching the customer and that you are the only one having a certain additional value or something like that. And in Shopware 6, we tried to solve the problems right away. So, of course, we tried to solve many other problems, but I think these are concepts that you will see differ a lot from Shopware 5. New markets, obviously, is talking about internationalization. So we reconsidered how translation should work, how prices should work, how currencies should work, how you maintain those things in order to be very flexible to give the customer good prices for each country. Same applies for channels. So in Shopware 6, we are not talking about sub-shops anymore, it's sales channels. And the main concept here is that we have understood that a web shop might be one channel you have, but it will never be the only one, or it shouldn't be the only one. So Shopware 6 is aware of that fact, and it allows you to roll out products to different channels way better than we have been able to in the past. And customer loyalty, I think you might have heard that in the past. We talked a lot about shopping worlds and customer centricity. So I think that's something we've been talking a lot in the past. And again, you will see that the new shopping worlds are even an improvement over the old ones. To achieve this, to try out new channels and so on, complexity must be reduced. Customers need to be able to try out new things, to make failures, to have successes, and then learn from experience. That's important for them. And at the same time, you need a solid foundation. So in the project, you don't want to talk about how price modifications could work in the core or how you could hack your language concept into the core. You just expect those things to be there. And I think we did a lot to make this happen. In order to enable this kind of creativity and speed, however, there must also be a clear way which you know you can go. So you want to understand what is the right way. A sentence like, everything is possible somehow, will not help you to do awesome software projects and to be successful with your customers. You want to know the right way to go. And this is why we also reconsidered the way we were handling our data and how prices should work and so on. So you will see there's a lot more patterns that you can use, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. For us, this also means that we have to use state-of-the-art technologies to make it easier for people around the world to work with them. And for us, this also includes a clear commitment to open source. And this is why I'm very, very excited to announce that Shopware 6 will be licensed under MIT. So for me personally, this is a clear commitment to the community, to the work with all of you. So we don't have the AGPL anymore, which was very cumbersome to understand, and I think most people will not know anything about it. But MIT is the de facto standard in the open source community, so you will see many projects, and it gives you a lot of flexibility to work with. We know that Shopware 6 is a conversion. There are many things change. We're breaking new ground in many areas. But we also know that compared to Shopware 5, it offers fewer surprises. And fewer surprises, as a programmer, is always a good thing. You don't want to be surprised at certain points. And so the learning curve is steeper. You will have to learn new things, of course. But for that reason, we will offer you free startup developer trainings in June and July. So there are 2 appointments in shopping where you come to see us, but there is also remote trainings where you can have a training from your workspace and you don't need to go to shopping for that. And the main goal here is to make you fit for Shopware 6 so that every one of you can say, yes, I had a good start with it and I learned how to use it, so we won't let you alone with that. In addition to that, in August we are planning a bigger hackathon in shopping. So again, this is a possibility to you to come by, to visit us, to discuss with us. So if we mess something up, you can just tell it us and force us to fix it. So in this section, I wanted to answer the question, why? Why did we do it? And this basically is the answer for it. So this is the philosophy behind Shopware 6. We love new technologies and we love to try them out, but we know that you are the ones in your everyday projects that do the true creative work. So you are doing the hard part basically. And you don't need a tight e-commerce core set, but you also don't need a spaceship toolbar set or something. You need a reliable foundation on which you can build. And that's Shopware 6 for us. So it's simple, it's flexible, it's state-of-the-art, and it's open source. So let's have a look at the agenda again. We finished the why part, and next up, let's talk about some tech. Talking about tech always means to talk about frameworks nowadays. Every modern e-commerce solution is built upon frameworks, obviously. And again, our goal was to use state-of-the-art technologies that enable you to be successful. We are using Symfony 4.2. Some of you already might know, so we are using Symfony Full Stack now. And for me, Symfony is not only a framework, it has shaped a whole generation of developers nowadays. And it stands for doing things the right way, in a proper way. So I think Symfony did a lot to educate us PHP developers and make us better developers. And so I think that's a very good choice for Shopware. If you know Shopware 5, you will know frameworks such as Zend and our Enlight edition. You will know Smarty, I think. You will know XJS. And you will know all the custom CSS we have in the front end. In Shopware 6, we're using Symfony as said. We're using Twig. We have Vue.js as an administration JavaScript engine. And we're using Bootstrap in the front end. So, and of course, there are many more things you already might know, but I think this will show you that we try to use technologies that you already might know that are not a surprise for anyone. Again, a lot of things will have changed. So a controller will look different now, and same applies for a template. But if you don't know, for example, Twig right now, if you just know Smarty, it will be easy for you to learn it. It's basically other kind of curly braces, and the syntax differs in detail, but it's the same kind of system, of course. And I think this is applicable for Symfony as well. The next part here is Vue.js. We're using Vue.js in our administration. And in contrast to XJS, Vue.js is not an eggplant for UIs. In Germany, we say it's not a eierlegende Wollmilchsau. So XJS tried to solve all the things, and I think it's an awesome framework, but it might be complex at some points. And Vue.js goes another approach. It's a very lean framework, and you have to build, for example, the components by yourself. And that's what we did. So this was a good match for us. So it's a standard technology you already might know, but the things we need to take care of by ourselves because we want to customize them is something we would have to build by ourselves anyway. Let's have a look at the manufacturer module. So how does a Vue.js application look like in the front end and behind the scenes? So you can see I created a chameleon manufacturer. And he has a title and a description, an image. And as it's in a chameleon, it needs colors, so it has also custom fields for colors. And how would you do something like that roughly in Vue.js? First of all, you would go and register a module. And a module is something we would have called a sub-application in the past. So it's like telling the administration you want to have an additional module in it. And there you can give a title, a description. You can select a color because we have this new color scheme in Shopware 6. And you can also define the entity you want to work with. And this is very important because we try to do more things automated for you. So you don't have to take care about all the details. So you can just tell the module what resource you want to work with, and many things, not all, but many things will work automatically. So next up, you can define the routes you want to use. So it might be a good idea to have a listing and a detail page, and you can link it to the navigation. So I think it's not rocket science. Then the second thing you need to know if you are talking about Vue.js is components. And components are, so to say, the building blocks of an Vue.js application. So there are components for listings, there are components for text fields, number fields, and so on. So for everything you can click on, there is a component. And if you want to have a listing by yourself, a manufacturer listing, for example, of course you don't need to write everything again. You can just reuse a standard component. And then we have methods like the data method or the computed methods, where you, for example, can initialize your store or load data right away or something like that. And then you implement the methods you need, for example, for a language picker or for the things to happen if the listing is loaded. And next up, there's some template. So we have not seen a template yet. In Vue.js, it's like in many other popular web component-based framework. So you're basically writing HTML markup. So it's something that almost any developer can do. And there are custom additions to it. So you will have, for example, the listing component, or you will have a page component, and so on. So there are, again, building blocks you can reuse in order to create your page. And of course, the question will be, okay, Shopware, you are using Vue.js now, but it's a lean framework, as you said, and then you build all the components by yourself, so it's not standard again, right? And for that reason, we created a lot of documentation for that. So for all the components we have, there's a so-called component library. And there you will have working examples how to create a listing, for example. You will see all the methods that you can use and all the properties there are. And of course, we are still working on it, so it's not final, but we will give you all the resources you need to use this stuff in your projects. Next up is another technical topic. It's called the DAL. And DAL is short for data abstraction layer. So that's a thin layer between the application and the storage of Shopware. So somehow it's something you plug into between your database and the business logic you have. And if you know Shopware 5 again, you might know that in Shopware 5 we introduced the storefront services. So services who took care about searching products. And I think you can think of the DAL as being this, but taking it to the extreme. So you have this kind of pattern for all entities now, and you can use it for writing, searching, reading, and so on. So it's a complete abstraction of the database, and we use that so that you have one place to go if you need data. So in theory, there should be no need anymore to write custom SQL queries. So this is a rough diagram about it, and as you can see, mainly you have read queries you can do, write queries you can search, and we have something called aggregates, and I will talk about that in a minute. But the nice part is the thing going on down here, so at the MySQL part, because at the abstraction layer means that it abstracts the database to a certain degree. So of course we're using still MySQL, but if you plug in Elasticsearch or if you have a Redis cluster or something like that in your project, the DAL is a place that will abstract those accesses for you. So you could still say, I want to perform a search, and the DAL will do that with Elasticsearch. If you have a simple read, it might fetch that from Redis, for example. And if you have writes, you will write them to MySQL, and from there it is automatically synced to all the other storages. So this is basically saying it will take care of those kind of issues. If you look at the DAL, I think the most prominent place to look at are the so-called definition files. So again, let's look at the manufacturer. In this case, we have a product manufacturer definition, and you can think of it as a schema definition for your database. So if you create a new table in MySQL, you will tell it which columns to have. If the columns are nullable, which type the columns have, is it an integer or a varchar or something. And this is kind of the same, but written in PHP. And the benefit is, again, that you will tell Shopware everything about your entity. So in this case, I'm telling it, I want to have a manufacturer. The entity should be called product manufacturer. And then you're defining the fields you have. You have a primary key, of course, and it should be required. And then you might have integers, varchars, and so on. But you can also tell it that you have translatable columns. So as you can see, it also tries to take care of common issues you might have or common problems you have, so and fix those in a general way. And of course, it also knows about associations, so you can tell it that a manufacturer is somehow related to products, so you can define all that. So you need it only to do at this one place, and Shopware will know all the things about it then. The DAL is also very powerful when it comes to extending entities. So a very common case is, I have a product, and now my customer asks me to have a bundle module. So, and somehow you need to tell the product that it is related to bundles. How do you do that? And in Shopware 6, you can just do that by extending the product fields and then kind of pushing the additional relations it should have to those fields. And then Shopware 6 will know about those relations. So from now on, Shopware 6 knows that there is a bundle module and where the definition file is found. So I have a bundle definition class. And Shopware will know everything about bundles and how they relate to products. And of course, you want to use it somehow. So let's have a look at searches. In this case, I create a criteria object first. And again, this is something you already know from Shopware 5. So I'm creating a criteria object. And then I can add filters to them. So I can tell it that I only want to have active products. And I can tell it that I want to sort the products by prices, for example. Now you need to tell it that you also want to have your bundle association. So what we not do is we do not fetch all associations at once. So if you have 10 plugins, we will not fetch all the 10 associations they have. So we don't overfetch the data. So you want to make sure that you're not fetching all the things all the time, of course. So you need to explicitly tell it to do that. And then you can just do the search by using the search service, and it will return you the results, and you can access your data. In this case, for example, the bundles. So I said it makes your life easier. Why is it? First of all, there are translations. I shortly talked about that earlier. And you can simply define that your entity should have a translatable field, and the DAL will take care of the handling of those things and switching languages in the storefront and so on. So again, you don't need to take care of that by yourself, and I think it makes those use cases way easier. Then we have also versioning in it. Currently, it's only used for orders as far as I know, but as I will show you later, we also have planned a lot of things using this versioning system. And versioning basically is that you have, I don't know, a log of all the changes that happen to the entity and that you are able to roll back to earlier versions. Events, of course. Events are the main source for extension. And in many cases, people will have requirements such like, I want to log whenever a product is written, or I want, whenever a product is written, I want to export it to the ERP right away. And the DAL supports this kind of event. So we have events for all those kind of things, so it's very easy for you to access those kind of events. Storages. I've been talking about that earlier, so again, infrastructure in nowadays e-commerce environments is massively more complex than it was 5 years ago. So people will have web servers, load balancers, that's the default. They have a database, of course, but then they will have Elasticsearch clusters and Redis clusters. They will perhaps even have a Varnish cluster or something like that. So there's a lot of storages you need to take care of. And as I said, the DAL will take care of reading from those storages if it's applicable, and it will also sync to those storages. So if you're writing a product, it will also index it to Elasticsearch, for example. And last but not least is API. As we know all about your entities, so you have written a definition manually, you have told us my bundle has a name and that's translatable and it's a varchar and it also has a price or something like that. We already know all the things we could know about your definition. And for that reason, the DAL is able to automatically expose APIs for those kind of things. So in this case, I want to call, or I want to get a listing of all products in the shop. And what I can do here is I will call the get/product root for the listing. And as you can see, you will have a JSON response, so it's a REST API, obviously. And we're using the so-called JSON API standard. So this is a standard how REST APIs should look like. For example, it defines that you have this nice links on top here, which tell you about the next page in the pagination, or the last page, or the previous page. So it's a more convenient standard to work with. And as you can see, there's a lot of information in it, and because of the JSON API standard, we also have links to, for example, associated entities. So it's a very sophisticated overview of all the things you need to know about a product. And from there, you could go and, for example, then call the variants or the prices. So you don't need to manually concatenate the strings anymore. I talked about aggregations earlier. So I said if you want to have bundles, you need to tell the system. We are not automatically fetching your bundles. And the same is applicable, for example, when you fetch categories. Let's say you want to fetch all the categories from Shopware 6, and of course you will get a listing of categories. But now you want to have the number of product assigned to each category, and this is not included. So if you're a Shopware 5 developer, you will be saying, that's easy, I simply need to create a new API controller for that, and then I will write an API resource, and then I'm doing a custom SQL query to also get that information. In Shopware 6, this is not true anymore. The aggregations we have is a way of telling the system which data you want to read additionally and how it should work with this data. In this case, I'm telling it, I also want to have the products, but I don't want to have the full listing. I want to have the sum. And in this case, this is a count aggregation at the top you are seeing here. And we have this kind of aggregations for many other things. We have it, for example, for sums and so on, so you could get the sum of all orders of a customer, perhaps, or the sum of all items in an order, or something like that. So you can see, again, it's very powerful, and there's less need to write custom APIs. A very important topic for plugin developers is extensibility. In Shopware 5.2, we introduced the new plugin system, and we got very good feedback about it. So it's more in a Symfony style. You had access to the service container, and I think it was a very good improvement to the earlier plugin system. And so we didn't try to reinvent the wheel. If you know the Shopware 5 plugin system, you will also find yourself in the Shopware 6 plugin system. Looking at the directory structure, there should be no big surprises for you. You still have the plugin bootstrap file where you can run your install methods and stuff. You have a file for your service decoration. You can create subscribers. And of course, you can have files to describe your menu or something like that. This is a service container, and again, you will know it from Shopware 5, and in Shopware 6, it's basically the same again. It's a Symfony service container. You can define own services, you can decorate existing services, and you can use tags and so on. So again, no surprise for you here. Same applies for subscribers. There shouldn't be a big change for you. It's the same system like in Shopware 5. What you can see here is that we have product events, product loaded event. And the nice part here is it's a minor improvement, but it's not a magic string anymore. It's a constant you can use, and it's auto-completed and so on. Again, it's more convenient for you. Controllers are Symfony controllers now, obviously. And you can use all the nice things Symfony offers. So if you want to use the annotation routing, that's a thing here in the comment. So you can tell it in the comment which route this thing should be used for. That's a pattern you can simply use, and I think many developers like that. Of course, you can still define your routes in another way if you like that more. And still, you can use simple configuration files if you want to create a simple configuration in the administration. So if you just want to ask the merchant for his PayPal credentials, you can simply do that, and it will automatically generate all the forms, and you don't even need to write a Vue.js application for that. And again, we try to document it properly so you can understand at which point which method will be called and when things happen in Shopware. So it's a more sophisticated documentation, a better overview, and I think the documentation guys did a really good job with that. At the same time, we also reconsidered how events should work or how extensions look like. So if you know Shopware 3, who worked with Shopware 3 here? Poor guys. So you might know something called hook points. So ask our developers about hook points today, please. So that was an extension system. And we dropped it in Shopware 4 for some reason. And then we introduced hooks. That's something different than hook points. And we introduced events. And then in Shopware 5, you had access to the service container, and you also had decorations. And the one typical question every single developer always asks is, which kind of extensions should I use? Should I use events? Should I use hooks? Or should I use decoration? And for that reason, in Shopware, we also thought about how that should look like. And of course, you can still use decorations. It's in a container, and everything which is public in the container, you can decorate. We won't stop you from doing that. But we have the clear commitment that we want to have more events again, that you have one way to go, that's one good way to use, and that's events. So we will have events for all the relevant use cases for you, and if something is missing, make a pull request or drop us a mail or whatever. So that, again, you have one way to go. And there won't be hooks anymore, so there's no way to hook classes as you could in Shopware 5. So all in all, we place great emphasis on having state-of-the-art technology. So we try to use the things that you already know, that everyone loves to use, and that have proved to work in a good way. And for that reason, I think, of course, you will have to learn new stuff. But for me, it's more like a rule of three, or in Germany, we say Dreisatz. So it's a very simple thing to learn, and it's not like the Poincaré conjecture or something you can spend your life with solving. So I think every one of you will be able to learn the new things. And if you have questions, of course, I'm touching just some topics today, but there will be additional slots. There is a slot for the core parts, so if you want to learn about how Shopware works behind the scene, there's a slot for it. We're talking about storefront and administration, so everything regarding templating. And we're talking about migrations from 5 to 6 and plugins in the last slot today. And again, if you still have questions after the community day, we will have trainings in June and July you can attend for free. And we will have a hackathon, so there's a lot of opportunity to ask us questions. And please really do that, so we make sure that there are no open questions afterwards. So, a quick look to the agenda. We wanted to talk about business models. And usually, if you say business models, developers will be like that, I think. So, what do you want from me? What is this? Business models? But in fact, I think business models are the thing that makes you sleepless at night because your customer has a crazy requirement you need to solve and you have no clue how to do that. And in most cases, I'm sure the customer does not make those requirements up to annoy you. They are related to a concern he has regarding his business model, the way he sees the e-commerce world with his ERPs, for example. So business models are, in this case, requirements we have to address in almost every e-commerce system, and every merchant has those kind of requirements. And we want to offer solutions for those kind of things, so you don't need to write plugins for those. First of which is versioning in my case. So versioning, as said, for example, someone messed up your product prices. All prices are wrong now. And so you at least want to know who did it, and that's logging. But then perhaps you also want to revert it, and then that's is versioning. So you want to have the good old prices again. But there are also legal requirements that you have to address. For example, in the case of an order, a customer is placing an order, is buying stuff in your shop, and then you need to prove that the order was placed, perhaps when it was placed, also which changes you made to the order. So did you change the number of line items perhaps? And perhaps you also want to show when the order went to shipping. And this in Shopware 6 is something we are doing using the versioning system. But I think that's a stupid case, it's a boring case. Later this year, we want to use the versioning system to make editorial workflows possible. So this is, you have an apprentice, for example, and he or she should create a new shopping world. But of course, you don't want to show that to the world right away. You want to have him or her create that shopping world, and then you want to review it, you want to make comments, and then perhaps the mistakes are fixed or something. And then the content manager needs to give his go, and then he can release a draft. So that's something we will do using the versioning system. So we will have versioning or content workflows for our new shopping experiences. Another use case, and for me that's the most fancy one, I think, is to have ways to plan ahead campaigns. So it's end of May now, and some of your merchants might think about Black Friday already. So, okay, Black Friday, we need to have promotions, we need to fix the ugly product descriptions, and we need some new landing pages, and we want to fix the categories, they should look different. And you need a way to do that, to do all that beforehand. And you want to do that without releasing any of it to the public beforehand. And then on Black Friday, or the day before, you want to release all that to the public with one click of a button in an ideal case. So you want to plan campaigns and change the look of your shop, for example, for Black Friday or for the summer collection or the winter collection and so on. And again, this is something that we will be releasing later this year, so you will be able to create this kind of campaigns and release them. And again, that's, I think, a very important case for many of our customers, and I'm really looking forward to that feature. Another thing is the rule builder. So I was thinking to myself, a lot of the inflexibility you have in e-commerce solutions is because there's some way of hard-coded groups. And there's always only this one type you can use, and you have to use it for your B2B and B2C customers, and then you will have groups for Poland, Switzerland, and for Germany, for example. But then again, there are also B2B and B2C customers, so you need to build the cross-product, and suddenly you will have 500 groups. How does anyone maintain that? And we try to solve this problem with a rule builder. So the rule builder is, looking at the UI, a system that allows you to define very complex conditions. So you can say, for example, I want to address every people from Great Britain, and if they have a cart greater 1,000 euros, then they should get another price in a product. But this should only be the case if the customer is either new or has ordered for more than 10 times in the past. So you can even have logical nested conditions and so on. And the cool part here is you might know that from promotional campaigns. So we had that for promotional campaigns in the past, but we have that now for many other places. You can even use it for your prices and products. So this is not a campaign. This is telling the product that for this very extremely specific customer group, there's just another price matrix to use. And this way, you are way more flexible in configuring your shop for which shipping countries it should be available and so on. And right now, we can use that for promotions, of course. We can use that for product prices. We can use it for shippings, and we can use it for payments. And in future, we will add it for categories, so you can have separate categories for separate customer groups. And we will use that for our new shopping experiences. Another use case we are planning this year is to integrate it with if this, then that style services. So imagine you could have events like customer ordered something, or customer registered, customer logged in, customer added something to the cart. Then you can attach such a rule to it. So if the cart is more than 1,000 euros and the customer comes from Great Britain, then you can then call a webhook, or then export it to my ERP, or just call if this and that. That's a service in the internet. And then you could also, for example, connect it to Twitter, to Slack, to Google Documents or something like that. So it will give you a lot of opportunity to have awesome connections without writing plugins in the first place. So this will reduce the need for plugins. So let's talk about the new cart. Again, we've been working on the new cart since 2015, I think. And since then, we try to understand what are the requirements that make your everyday life hard. What do we need to change? And of course, we tried to make it more modular. So that's easier to understand for you. It's a simpler system. But of course, there are also many improvements in detail. So we have reconsidered our price calculation. So you can reuse the rules I talked about earlier and have very different prices for every single customer, for example. We rewrote it regarding database access, so that's easier for you, or that the cart has less impact on the database. It has less writes, it has less reads, so it's way more performant. We can recalculate orders from the administration, so if you're changing an order, it will tell you the correct price for that current customer scope. And it will also take care of stock handling and so on split orders. That's not a feature we built right into it right now, but we plan to do it for later, so it's ready for that kind of things. And of course, it supports managing currencies and taxes, so it's way more flexible for if you have separate currencies for separate countries, you can define which currency should get which price and so on, so you can have round or fancy prices for every country. Next up, let's talk about the CMS. And the typical question for Shopware is, how do you integrate Typo 3 into it? And so we saw a certain need for more CMS-style functionalities. And to be clear, of course, Shopware is not a CMS, and I don't even want to claim that. But if you look at the new shopping experiences, that's the shopping worlds 2.0, so to say, you can see that there is a new, in the new administration, you can open up the shopping experiences. You will have all the layout types. You can browse through, for example, landing pages, category pages, and so on. And you will have an overview of all the variant pages. If you go into the detail here, you will see a fully blown shopping experience. And then, of course, we have switchers for responsive templates, so you can see it in mobile or tablet. And so that's a very convenient way to work with a CMS. Also, it's very easy to add new components to it. And as you can see, we changed the way that works. We don't have the grid system anymore. We have prefactored components you can simply drag and drop, and there are components for text, text-image combination, image-commerce combinations. So, and I think that's very easy, even for me as a developer who can't work with nice designs or something, to have something that looks good and that works on every device. So I can simply throw in a new block, and then, of course, I'm not forced to use it exactly as it looks like here. So I can change the text, for example, without going to ugly detail masks. And I can even still say, I don't want to have the image here, I rather want to have a product to be shown. So in this case, I'm selecting the product, and then I want to define which product I want to show. And perhaps I'm not happy with the layout of the product, so I even can change the layout so that I'm getting a bigger image for the product. And this way, the shopping experiences are way more easy to use and, yeah, very convenient, I think, for everyone, even if you don't know anything about technology. New is also the schematic overview, so that's taking away all the fancy stuff like images and so on, and it's just about typing in the text and configuring all the things. But I will show you that later into detail. So the main idea is that this kind of shopping experience can happen on any page in the shop. You can use it, for example, on your detail pages, category pages, for your static pages even. So you're not limited to use them only for certain types of pages. You can also use them in a dynamic way. So this is a category module. And now let's say you have one layout that you want to use for all your categories. That's a nice thing, it's easy to use. But then the customer calls in and says, okay, for the computer category, you need to show another headline. And the nice thing is that you can do that without duplicating the shopping experience. So you can simply go here to the computer category and change the headline right away without duplication. It will just automatically override the old text it would have with a new one. And the coolest feature here is, I think, the so-called data mapping, so that's the thing here. So you don't even need to type in the text by yourself. You can tell it, in the context of the current category, please show the name of the category or show the image of the category. So it's able to work with the entities it's having in a dynamic way again. So for me, this is all about flexibility, simplicity, and speed. Being fast in projects and don't have headaches for all the complicated things. And again, it's more than just shopping worlds. Talking about the toothbrush moment again, it's about picking up the customer right where he is or where she is. So it's about understanding what the customer wants and having very customizable experiences for them so they can find themselves in your online shop. And the example was photographers again. So you want to address photographers in a very special way. You want to show photographers other kind of shopping experiences than other people buying bags in your shop or something like that. Okay, next up is roadmap. I just want to quickly address that. So of course you want to know what is Shopware 6? Is it final now? And what are we talking about? And again, what are we releasing the rest of the year? So obviously we won't make vacation for the rest of the time. So today we are releasing Shopware 6 in a developer preview. So this is especially for you as a developer to try out, to learn the new system, to see if you can make your plugins compatible and give us feedback about it. In July, we will release Shopware 6.0 in an early access. This means we make it available for all the merchants. If someone wants to install it as an enterprise customer, you can do that. And again, in this phase, we know it's an early product, so it won't be perfect at the time, so we need to be honest here. And again, we want to get your feedback, the feedback of the customers to improve the product. And in this time, we will add features that might be missing. So for example, currently there is no reviews. So no review module. And we will do that starting from July. And then in December, there will be Shopware 6.1. And at this point, latest, we want to have all your feedback implemented inside it. And we want to make it available for every customer. So at this point, there should be no things to concern. Okay, other features we want to add. Later this year, we will release a B2B suite. You might know it, so it's enterprise extension for B2B customers. We will release custom products, extension for Shopware Professional when it's about customizing products. So for example, having cups with custom titles on them. We will release more shopping experiences. So it's all about having more value for our customers, additional components, additional blocks, and so on. And we want to add more sales channels. So I talked about catching the customers where they are on Instagram and so forth. So we need to integrate those kind of sales channels so you can use them right away without extending Shopware. And last but not least, we need to talk about editorial workflows. So the thing I was pointing out earlier, so a way that you can make sure that your apprentice does not release things right away, but they go through a review process. Okay, so I see we're a bit late in time, so let's draw the conclusion. Today, we talked about future challenges in e-commerce. I talked about hype technologies and why they are not a good time, not a good guide for your product. And I talked about plasticity, adaptability, and flexibility, and picking up the customer where he or she is. We talked about our roadmap, about what Shopware 6 is today and about what Shopware 6 will be at the end of the year. We talked about changes that we will do, or changes we did to Shopware 6, things that you have to learn. We are convinced that Shopware can only be successful with a powerful community, and therefore we went full MIT. So today, after more than 3 years of work, we are presenting Shopware 6. Over 200 lines of code have been written by our developers, more than 7,000 contributions, and more than 50 contributors from more than 4 companies that have been working together with us. So, and I think this is worth a big round of applause for our developers. At the same time, we know, of course, it's also your success. Without your cooperation and your enthusiasm, your feedback, this wouldn't have been possible. In the last few years for Shopware 5, you created more than 2,000 pull requests by 200 contributors. So we still see that a lot of you are using Shopware 5 and that you need Shopware 5. And for that reason, Shopware 5 will go into an LTS stage, so we will support it for 5 more years. So if you're working with Shopware 5, there's no need to be afraid. It will still be maintained, it will get features and bug fixes for quite some time, yes? And again, for all your contributions and all your help, also a big round of applause for you. So what's left to do for today? Please check out Shopware 6 from GitHub. Give it a star if you like. And then try it out, give us feedback, experiment with it. Remember that in June and July there will be additional startup developer trainings and there will be a hackathon in August. If you have questions, there are a lot of additional slots today that will answer your questions. And also in the pump hall, that's basically there downstairs, there are developers asking, so outside the slot you can still ask your questions. There are slots for core development, front end, and so on. So if you have questions also for Shopware 5, there will be developers waiting for you. Ask them everything you want. At the end, let me be clear again. This is a very big step for us. And we will not be able to do this step without you. So reach out in any possible way, give us feedback so we can work together on it. So this is our day, and I'm very excited about Shopware 6, but I'm even more excited about your feedback, what you have to say about it. So let us make Shopware 6 a true community project. Thank you.